Do I need to know coding? Do I need an expensive laptop? Do I need to invest in an expensive design degree? Very big component is how you pitch it, because convincing your stakeholders, getting your PMs on board, explaining them the vision is a huge part of it, which many designers often fail. It is such an underrated habit. No, I think you attract certain opportunities because of who you've been before. When you're going through your struggles and your journey, you feel like you're the only one. And then you enter this room where everyone is going through a similar story. And that sense of belongingness, that sense of tribe is very comforting. Like you go back home not being tired, but just being more excited about the next day. I would love it if AI could replace all my Figma work. Like
Absolutely.
imagine if our hands-on work would be replaced by Figma and all we had to do was command and give direction.
So-called ecosystem of information kind of affects our beliefs and behaviors. So it's like, what do you expose yourself to? And how do you create that environment around you where you are reaffirming the things that you know?
See, every time I get too much into the depths of like technicalities and design, I would just take a trip to like Chani Chowk or Karol Bagh or all these markets in Delhi, where they've spent zero money on marketing design, zero money on aesthetics, but they're running great businesses.
So a couple years ago, when I was working as the head of design, and I remember we were hiring for a design intern position. This was at an academy. Among all the applications, I remember there was one that particularly stood out to me. It was a computer science student from VIT, final year, done a bunch of interesting projects, was interested in filmmaking and design, and overall just seemed like a very interesting dude. That was when I first met Ansh, and for whatever reason, I knew we had to collaborate in some way. There was just some vibe match. So while that internship, didn't really end up happening, we did stay in touch. I decided to jump into building my own business. Ansh went on to intern at Swiggy and then work with a bunch of startups, including Zudl, where he was the founding designer. Now, fast forward a couple of years, we did end up collaborating, and Ansh hosted a season of Whiteboard.fm, which is a design podcast and YouTube series that we run at 10K Designers. It's on YouTube, you can definitely check that out. Now, in this video, however, we got the chance to catch up and talk about a bunch of stuff. We discussed some of the learnings he's had as a designer and as a YouTuber. Going deeper into that, we talked about some misconceptions that a lot of beginners getting into design have, and we tried our best to clear some of these. We also geeked out on note-taking apps and building a second brain, and how documenting and note-taking and journaling can actually be a very powerful thing for designers. We, of course, talked about the fears around AI in the creative industry and just shared our perspective on why it actually is probably a very, very good thing. So sit back, grab a beverage. In this video, I was drinking a cold brew, and get ready for a really interesting conversation that I think you would really benefit from if you are somebody who is entering the design field. Enjoy. What's up, Ansh? Good to have you on this channel. I think it's been a long time. What's up? How's it going?
I am so glad to be here. Like, even though we've spoken about so many things offline and maybe, not on the channel, but I'm so happy that we're finally doing this.
Yeah. And bro, I've been seeing your work, of course, over the last, since you've started kind of scaling up YouTube. And I'll just say this, bro, super inspiring. Like, I think I like your videos for the purpose that you've really put in thought behind every single element, like your backgrounds, your process, your quality. Of course, I've seen that when we work together on Whiteboard as well, but also because you have an obsession with quality, and that really stands out in all the stuff you do. So amazing job, by the way, on the channel so far.
I'm so glad to hear that, because I remember when I was in college, the first video that I saw from you was this video where you're listening to an Alan Watts speech and you're making like sketches and notes. And at that time, I was just entering UX and I was telling my best friend that, dude, this is a designer who even knows who Alan Watts is, right? Because you won't find too many people talking about Alan Watts. So yeah, really glad to hear this coming from you.
Dude, I felt the same way, honestly, when I think when I was at Unacademy and we had connected back then, I remember going through your work and you had, I think, a series on Facebook where you were talking about, I don't remember exactly what it was, but
Yeah.
along those lines. And I was like, bro, this guy is like, I really want to work with him somehow.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah. So tell me this, dude. A lot has happened, no? Last couple of years. Like, what is your journey been like in terms of like you've been into filmmaking, you've been into design, but now you're kind of doing that at much bigger scale. Zardil raised a bunch of money. They're growing really well. I keep seeing your updates, and the channel is doing well as well. What's your experience like these days?
So I think two things have played a huge role in my growth. First was getting associated with Graphy, right, by Unacademy. They were the ones who got me in touch with Ankur Warikoo and Ranveer Alabadia when I was just starting out. And post that, I started following Ranveer and Ankur very closely. And I realized that it's not just about the content, it's about your presentation, the title, the SEO. Like a lot of components come together to make a good video. And I was recently being mentored by Ankur. He has a YouTube cohort going on. So that really opened up my mind because he has made a science out of it. So if you see my videos before April and post April, you would see a huge shift, right, in terms of duration and audio. And plus, I was trying to do everything on my own. And basically, when I started, I was making videos for myself. And now I'm finally making videos for others. There's a huge difference, right? You begin with a creative expression and then you realize that it's not just about your own expression. It's about what people want. So now I'm more towards serving rather than just doing it out of my own hobby.
And how has the response been? Like what kind of insights have you gotten since you started doing that?
I feel like there's a very long way to go. I think I've just started, but I like one thing about my following, and I think it's because I've always been very true with my words. So even if I have 1,000 people watching the video, out of 1,000, 100 would like it. So 1 out of 10 like ratio is a pretty good ratio, and that is what I want to maintain. Second thing is that a lot of people, they come and watch the video, but they just feel good about it and never implement it. So you really have to make sure that you give them something that they hold on to post the video as well. So maybe end with 3 resources. Give them a CTA. Otherwise, as soon as the video dies, they will forget about it.
Yeah. Tell me this, okay? Where did your understanding of personal brand start? Because I feel like you've kind of been very intentional about your brand design from a while. But where did that kind of start? And how do you see personal brand today?
You know, there are so many reasons why I recommend everyone to build a personal brand. It primarily comes from the fact that when we design experiences, it's very easy to take inspiration or simply replicate what we make on our Figma files, right? But it's extremely difficult to replicate a person or a human being, right? And that is when I realized that instead of just focusing on my work, I should also focus on putting myself out there, because you can easily replicate my videos and content, but it's difficult to sort of become another Ansh Mehra. You might have your own version of it.
And they're not going to do it as good as you can.
Right? Yeah. Because even Naval talks about it, right? Like the richest people are being paid for being themselves, right? So Oprah or all of these people. So it's very important to put your authentic self out there. And secondly, I think that when you are out there, people fall in love with your story, your journey, and then they start consuming what you do, right? So a lot of people might fall in love with Steve Jobs and then decide to buy something from Apple, right? So it's because people eventually connect to stories, they follow people, they want to be associated with people. And now that I've started putting myself out there, my life has changed because so many people message me. And you know, the Delhi circuit is crazy. Like the people you meet, the parties, the nightclubs, it's a whole new world. But that would have been not possible if I wasn't there on the internet.
Yeah. I get what you mean. Like from personally as well, I did not like the fact that most, let's just say, design content or ways to learn were just screen shares, right? That was the scene, I think, a couple of years back, where the best you could find for was tutorials. It was just screen share, sometimes some person with a monotone voice. But I think, same here. Like, I think the reason a lot of people resonated with my content when I started was because there was some personal side to it.
Yeah.
And why do you think more designers don't do YouTube? What do you feel is the blockers there?
I think there are two major mistakes also, right? Like, so the reason why they don't do it, obviously because of time. They work in companies where they barely get any time. Even if they have time, the second component is energy. And right, a lot of people underestimate this, but your nutrition, your sleep, all of these things put together, they determine how much energy you have. So even if you have a lot of time and no energy, you can't do anything about it. And third is a lot of YouTube videos that are around design are on Figma and systems built in Figma. The downside is that the software is changing so quickly that in a span of 2 years, your videos are going to be outdated. That is why when I was making my course, I wanted to make sure that I don't teach Figma in a lot of depth. Even though I am a huge Figma fan, I would never make a video that teaches you Figma. Simply because the video gets outdated, the shelf life is too low. And a lot of designers they still need to know how to communicate their own thoughts, right? Because designing is something else, and a very big component is how you pitch it. Because convincing your stakeholders, getting your PMs on board, explaining them the vision is a huge part of it, which many designers often fail to, deliver properly. So I think they're sort of underconfident about it.
But what did you have similar hesitations or different hesitations when you were starting out?
100%. And it's so crazy, right? So I feel like working out has really helped me, because when I started working out, a lot of mental shifts happened for me, right? I started getting myself into a routine. And when I worked out, I sort of had more confidence in myself that now I'm looking fitter, I'm looking better. I started investing in my food, my clothing. So that changed the entire perception of I had about myself in my head. And when that changed, I could easily face the camera. And I feel like that is a big part of who you are, right? Like if you're going on YouTube, you need to be confident about how you look and if people are even resonating with what you're saying. So I would recommend all designers to firstly spend some time just practicing communication, how to talk, how to speak, and start focusing on yourself, work out, eat healthy, and you will have more confidence to face the camera.
I have a very similar kind of story with the gym, where I was at the gym one day doing my session and I saw this dude who was like really buff, right? Load up, I think 150 kg bench press, right? Now I'm just like watching him do it. And this was during the time when I was really thinking about, how do I grow business, right? Not really design, but from the business perspective. I was like, dude, I feel like I'm so behind. There's just so much stuff I felt like I didn't know, right? But then in that moment, I was there in the gym and I saw this guy and it immediately just clicked to me. I'm just like, dude, I would not expect to bench press 150 kgs, right? And when I look at this, it's inspiring when I see this person do it. And then suddenly this thought just hit me. I was like, dude, why am I so impatient with my results when it comes to business? Obviously this dude has been doing it for 2 years, 5 years, probably close to 10 years. He had really good physique. And I was just like, okay, so I totally get what you mean. Benefits of the gym. But I get these kind of thoughts when I'm just sitting there in between reps looking at people. Yeah.
A gym is a very good place to think about stuff. I would recommend everyone to gym without music on, because the kind of ideas and thoughts that you get when you're pushing yourself out there, you can get a lot while being in the gym.
Tell me this, dude, Ansh, with Zuddle, you are working with a product that is kind of related to YouTube, right? You're doing something which is a tool for creators to do live streams. How much of your work as a product designer do you think is influenced by all of the filmmaking stuff as well? Do you see all of this as same, or do you kind of see this as two different categories in your life?
When I look back, I feel like everything that I've done has helped me with my work at Zuddle. And it's crazy, right? Sometimes just things just get together. So, I mean, when you're making a product, right? So the thing is that when I started out, for me, designing a product was just about figuring out the UI or the onboarding flow or the components. But the thing is, design is a facilitator for business. As designers, we might have this ego issue, right? The design is everything and this and that. But the thing is, it's a facilitator. And in the end, when I was designing Zuddle Studio, there were two major priorities. And it's not just for studio, right? For any product that I design now. One is that it should be scalable. The ideas that you have must scale with time, and they need to be easy to develop, ease of development. Because if you make something extremely fancy and it's not implementable, it would never reach the market. And third, functionality over aesthetics. 100%. A lot of people get too much into the depths of aesthetics, but if you notice the Indian market, specifically in India, a lot of biscuits and brands and all of these things, they might not have the best of aesthetics, but their distribution and their functionality is on point, right? That's why they don't even change the wrappers for years and years. They can have the best of designers, but they would not change the packaging forever, right? True. So as a filmmaker, Of course, the visual aspects and the editing and transitions, all of that came into place. But I realized the importance of storytelling, like the beginning of a story, the ending of a story, having some sort of gamification that keeps you hooked, because intervals are for that. The reason why they put intervals is so that, of course, they want business from the confectionery. But the other thing is that they want you to be more curious. So there's this 10-minute window where they hype you up because you don't know what the end is.
Yeah.
So all of these things really helped me when I was designing the experience.
And how different do you think it would be if you did not have this video experience? I mean, of course, hypothetical.
Yeah, it would have been like terrible. I think I think you attract certain opportunities because of who you've been before, right? So the internship that I got at Zuddle was primarily because of all these varied experiences, right? So I was working on contract with them, and they saw that this guy has been working on video. That is why they got me on board. Even at Swiggy, the fact that I had video experience really helped me get my internship at Swiggy as well. So at the outset, you might feel that, oh, this kid is doing 5 different things and he's not a specialist. But that generalist thing, that Swiss Army knife sort of thing really helped me out.
I think that's a good point, because like usually when I have conversations around personal brand, I think a misconception people have is they kind of look at it as this top-down thing that you have to build, starting with your logo, and then this, and then versus I kind of see personal brand, it's almost like an emergent thing, right? Which is you follow the things that interest you. Eventually, you kind of develop a bit of a reputation for doing those things. And then that's your brand. Like that's what people associate with you.
More than that, it's the story that you're selling, right? So my story is an engineer who turned into a designer who loved filmmaking. A lot of my followers are in the same category. They are engineers who wanted to do something creative and they ended up in design. The first video that I upload on my YouTube channel is called What's My Story. Even in my tutorials that I've put, there's a scene at the end. Like Eminem used to have this in his albums as well. He used to have a skit in his album. So I got inspired from him. I have skits as well and they wait for it, right? Because the story is where you enter their hearts. And once you enter their hearts, you're there. And that is the brand that you can build.
True. Yeah. So tell me this, right? We both have similar audiences in the sense that it is people who are who want to get into design, people who maybe from an engineering perspective or they are from graphic design background. What are I feel like you're very close to your audience. Like you kind of read all their comments, you kind of have that mental picture of what people want. What do you think are some misconceptions that people starting out typically have around product design?
Yeah. I feel like the first one is obviously, do I need to know coding? Do I need an expensive laptop? Do I need to invest in an expensive design degree? Now, a lot of people say that I'm in my 12th. If you're saying that I don't need a design degree, maybe I should just not pursue college. I don't recommend that, because I feel like even if you're doing a degree that you're not interested in, the process of pursuing a degree really shapes you. And in India right now, it still matters to some part of the society. They will ask you what you're doing. And the thing is, even if you're extremely good at your design work and you're freelancing, even if you're making money, the people around you will demotivate you simply because that pressure builds up. They'll be like, it's okay if you're earning money but for how long? You still don't have a degree, and that takes a toll on you. So I would recommend to enroll yourself in any degree whatsoever, but spend a lot of time getting good at your craft. And dude, the kind of work that you get on these freelance websites is crazy. There's so much work. I don't get it. People say that, will someone give me work? Is there enough opportunity? Is there enough work? The world is booming with opportunities. It's crazy. And the thing is, they ask me questions that they can Google. Like for anyone who's watching this, I would recommend you to please make sure that if you're talking to a human being, don't ask questions that can be Googled or YouTubed or searched on Medium. Google is amazing. I think people just underestimate the power of Google. Yeah. So yeah, I feel if they focus on this.
I feel that, bro. I feel like especially for people who are in 12th, right? I think in general, the kind of advice of not going to college, self-taught designers, it's all true. But I think I definitely would not suggest that somebody who's in 12th, right? Because you've been a part of cohort-based courses, right? Like you've been part of Variku's. I ran a cohort-based course. I kind of see college as the first cohort, or not the first, but a very transformational community that you are joining, which is similar with cohort-based courses. You are going to be joining a community, meeting people, working with them. But college, outside of all of that, that's what college was supposed to be. Yeah. And I think 4 years being in that environment where you're focused, yes, you might not like what your degree is. You might not like what program you enrolled in. You might not like your college. But that kind of focused environment where for 4 years, for 3 years, you're with these people. on
Yeah.
a common path is so
Yeah.
rare. Like today, all my friends are doing totally different stuff. Like we can never align on the things that we do.
And the thing is, when you meet someone, you can estimate how much human interaction they've had. Like when you meet someone who's been into a lot of co-curricular activities, the way that person carries himself is very different from a person who spent a lot of time indoors playing FIFA or playing, PlayStation. You can judge it, like your brain just knows that this guy has been in social situations. And I feel like that really helps. So there's a friend of mine, he got his younger brother to my place saying that, recommend him something, a skill, a software, whatever. I was like, dude, forget all the softwares, learn how to talk, learn how to sell, and just start taking care of yourself. If you know how to talk, if you know how to sell, and if you're taking care of your physique and your body language, a lot of doors are going to open for you automatically. You will fit in any industry.
True. Absolutely, bro. Agree with that. You're a very creative guy. Okay. Like you've done video, you've done, of course, product design. Is there a creative field where you're like, dude, I really want to get into it? But I just haven't. What is that for you right now?
Rap for sure.
Rap, yeah.
I would have been a rapper for sure. I'm obsessed with rap. I feel like a 3-minute good rap song can teach you a lot. Like I would recommend people to study rap songs extensively. Like, do you listen to rap?
Of course, all the time. Yeah.
You would know, right? Like the kind of wisdom that's there. It's crazy. Like it makes me.
And I think now is such a great time because there's so much Indian rap. Like there are distinct Bombay and Delhi scenes.
Oh yeah,
did not
it's
exist
crazy.
before.
It's crazy. I love it.
Yeah. What do you like? How do you think about the future? Do you kind of are there places you want to be? Are there things you want to do? Or is there some kind of overall guiding thing where you kind of follow your interests? How do you think about the future? Just curious.
Yeah, I feel so. This is a pretty controversial question, right? Because how I see about the future is very vague, but I have a direction. So I've been reading a lot about luck and destinies and fate. Do we control our lives or we're part of a bigger plan? And I feel like you really don't know. I personally believe that we are just players in someone else's game. We might be the main character in our story, but all our stories are sort of getting compounded towards this one big story, right? So I feel like there are just 4 or 5 components that I can control. Other than that, it's actually not in my control. I lie to myself saying that I can control this. So what I can control is my health, how I think, the kind of people that I associate myself with, and traveling and just getting more facts. The more I learn, the more facts I accumulate, the better my decision making is going to be. And I'm just practicing pattern recognition. That's all. Even though pattern recognition might have its flaws as well, right? Because you see it in the stock market all the time. You have a pattern and it breaks. But you just do what you want to do. I don't think that I will only focus on design in the longer run. I feel like design is something that is very integral to me, but it's not the only thing that I would want to do. And just taking care of myself and my health and my mind, because that's the only thing that I have in my control.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Yeah, man. I kind of feel the same way in terms of like just with a lot of creative people that I speak to, they might have gotten started with 1 or 2 specific areas. But then I feel like there usually is a time when they realize that, dude, the thing that I'm doing is no different from, this other thing, which is my creative process, my way of doing things, my way of looking at the world is very, very transferable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
that's actually one of my favorite things about being a designer, actually, to be very honest.
No, the thing is that this entire will AI replace us debate, right? Like you must be getting a lot of questions on it as well. I just don't get it. Why are people scared of it? I just don't get it. Why are you scared of progress? I would love it if AI could replace all my Figma work. Like imagine if our hands-on work would be replaced by Figma and all we had to do was command and give direction. Now, of course, this is a big issue for that 80% chunk that is earning only because of, all these scams that they do, right? Like they would pick up templates and sell them, like flipping templates. For them, it's a bad thing. But I think like the sea is rising, so the boats are going to rise with it. You can either ride it or like drown in it. So we should not be scared of the future.
Absolutely not, bro. In fact, one common example that kind of helps click this in place for people is when Webflow came out, when sites like even on WordPress came out, right?
Yeah.
People were like, dude, it's over for web designers. Oh my God, we can't do anything now. And I was like, dude, do you still see front-end engineers, web developers? Yeah. But then my job of making websites without learning to code has gotten so much easier. There's so much I would never do if I did not have that tool. And now I'm looking at AI or rather DALL-E 2 and Midjourney. And I'm like, dude, like suddenly like a new area of the map has unlocked. And I'm like, dude, I can't wait to start doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the definition of a product designer would change. Like the definition of a web designer has changed ever since Webflow and WordPress came into the picture. But it's not like we're going to run out of jobs, right? There's always going to be work, more interesting stuff, more exciting stuff. And at the pace at which we deliver things is going to increase. That means the growth rate is going to increase, right? Like people used to take 10, 15 days to design websites pehle. Now they can make it in 3 days. Right? So imagine the rate at which we're going to grow.
True. I think the fear does come from beginners, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Because it's like I think usually it's like they think product design is X.
Yeah.
And suddenly they see something else can do X. And they're like, oh my God, what am I going to do without X? The point is it requires X, Y, Z, and a bunch of other things.
I mean, so the thing is, I think you'd know about the popular infamous clip, right? And it mentioned UI sources as well, that if you feed 10 different UIs to an AI, it would make the 11th screen on its own. So a lot of beginners think that is all that we do. Making an onboarding screen, making the UI elements, that is all that we do. But I mean, yeah, eventually they will figure out. It's a fictional fear, right? Like it's not even real. So they'll eventually figure out.
True. It's one of the good fears. I would say, fears like, do I need to be creative to be a designer? Do I need a degree? There was one more, right?
Do designers get less salary than engineers?
Designers get less salary, or do designers not make money at all, right?
Yeah.
That's like even more extreme version. I think DALL-E is a good list on that fears thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would definitely suggest everybody to explore a little further, go a couple layers deeper, because I think if you look at a distribution of designers, the best designers today have so many layers, like they're going so much in depth that you can't even say that a tool will replace them, because there's so much that they're doing. It's just not one thing.
Yeah. Like you see the rise of Indian UX design content creators, right? Like there are like 7-8 players in the game, and I'm very excited about where this would go, right? Because earlier we had like physics, chemistry, math YouTubers, and now there's this UX design YouTube wave coming in, and they're making very creative stuff. Like I love this. I love all the videos that you put out, Sapta, Arudeep. They're being very creative with their reels.
Yeah. In fact, I've been exploring a few recently. I came across Rajiv Mehta for the first time.
Rajiv Mehta, I'm probably going to do a collab with him. He's made a series on UX.
It was really good, bro. Like his storytelling, like I was transfixed. I was literally watching it. I was like, wow.
And the fun part is that he's picking things at the very ground level, right? Like he's not talking about some fictional problem statement or like fictional stuff. Like that is the thing that I love about Desi creators, right? Like they just get to the hook. There's no fluff in Indian tutorials, and I love that.
Yeah. I'm really excited about more design content on YouTube, because I think it's this kind of place where there are so many misconceptions, and all of this does come from a certain skewed perspective, just because there isn't enough to go on. But I think the more perspectives that you have, I would be very excited to have stuff like this and not just tutorials. Like for me, it was Photoshop tutorials, right? I was trying so hard to find like this one San Francisco designer. They would write a blog about it. I'd be like, oh my God, like my year is made. I found something nice.
Yeah. But there's so much of abundance of content out there, right? Like too much noise, very little signal, because almost all design videos right now talk about similar stuff. Medium is still, it goes into the depths of it. And I feel like, right, of course, it's easy to type about it. It's very difficult to sort of mention all those nuances about design and experiences. So I think a lot of designers are writing on Medium rather than making videos.
True. Have you ever considered going full-time YouTube? This is actually a question, like I posted in the Discord just before this, like what are some questions you want to ask Ansh?
Yeah.
This is one somebody asked. What for you would be a signal which is like, it's time. It's time to be full-time. Or is there something like that?
I feel like I don't want to be a teacher. I don't want to be a full-time teacher. I haven't thought about being a full-time YouTube creator, but I feel like when I see, for example, I move around in Delhi and I see a lot of people who live very comfortable lives, making a lot of money. They're not on Instagram. They're not on YouTube. They stay pretty low-key. And my intent with YouTube was to become popular as a designer. So I would teach people and then they would know about me and then it would open more doors for me. But the thing is, when you start teaching, you exhaust a lot of your time and energy. When you make so many videos, you have very little time for your own learning.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like I would want to balance it out. I wouldn't do YouTube full time, at least not for the next 2-3 years because I'm very young. And I feel like because I'm young, I have very high energy and I should spend that energy just learning. Maybe 5 years down the line, if I feel like I know enough to teach at a consistent level, like Ranveer and all these people, like I don't know how these guys would take out the time to learn because it takes a toll on you making so much content.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, speaking of DALL-E 2, I'm really waiting for like whatever GPT 6 or DALL-E 7, where it can just make YouTube videos for me.
Oh man.
So, you know what we were talking about, that personality is key. Like personality, your life, the way you talk about it, that relatability. Like if I had DALL-E 2 that would make videos, I'd be like, yeah, I just need to bring the personality.
So
I need to
imagine
bring my perspective, and then DALL-E 2 just does everything. Stitch a nice story for me.
Exactly, like it could take care of the deep fake, so your face would be there and you would be talking. It would replace the background, put some scripts and automate the uploading. Like there's a lot of scope there if they manage to include videos.
Yeah. And I don't even see it as an if. I'm like, it's just a matter of time. Like, I
it
actually
will
don't
happen.
even know what percentage of YouTubers today are already using GPT-3 for their scripts. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. That's so true. When are you coming to Bangalore? Or Delhi
end of
actually. Like when was the last time you came to Delhi?
Very long time, like maybe a couple of years.
Oh man, you should come to Delhi. It's a whole new world.
I am planning to. I think end October is when I'm planning to come to India and go to Bangalore. And I also want to do like 1 or 2 other cities. Last time I did Goa and Bangalore. This time I'm going to be like, let's actually meet. Vinamra, mostly I'll do Delhi because I'm just like, bro, I really want to go to Faridabad.
Yeah. I think your dostas is going to be amazing.
Yeah. But I actually want to do that, bro. I feel like there's so many people, like you included, that I've met online, just never interacted with. And I'm like, dude, like it's just one missing link. Like I just make the effort and then boom.
I mean, that is why I've been conducting these meetups, right? I mean, there are some design events happening, but I still feel like they lack that quality and like that. I really want meetups to be in a specific way, and that is what I've been trying. So I'm going to have like a Delhi meetup as well, and let's see how that goes.
What was your first meetup like? Like what kind of experience did the people have?
Oh man, it was amazing. We had it in Mumbai, and my intent was to keep it very small, like have a limited pool of people, and it was split. So 50% were beginners, 50% were experienced people. Out of those, 50% boys, 50% girls. So I wanted to make sure there's a good equal, proportion of people. And it was crazy, right? Because when you're going through your struggles and your journey, you feel like you're the only one. And then you enter this room where everyone is going through a similar story. And that sense of belongingness, that sense of tribe is very comforting. Like you go back home not being tired, but just being more excited about the next day.
I totally get what you mean, bro. It's for me, I've actually been on the creator side of that, which is with the cohorts. Initially, it was like, okay, yeah, it's an online course. We do it live. Let's try to interact as much as possible and general statement, right? But then the minute you start looking at it from a design process perspective, you're like, wait, the whole thing's wrong. Like everything should be, like there's just so much room for experimentation and in a physical event, but also in just like running this online thing. So I love that, bro. I love how these online experiences are leading to offline connections for so many people. Like I did not imagine it would be at that point.
I mean, they're making friendships. I see them hanging out now after the meetup. So, right, like, so your one event, one day can trigger friendships. And you never know which friendship leads to what opportunity and what happens. So you never know what happens through these meetups. But, massive respect. I feel like 10K is the only cohort that people trust right now. I think there are like 20 cohorts in India that teach design. None of them have achieved what you have achieved in terms of quality and like everything.
Yeah, thanks, bro. Personally, I think for me right now, I'm focusing on quality, even if it comes at the cost of scale. Like even if I have to do it smaller, certain things just not possible. Cannot never be a unicorn startup, right?
Yeah.
Growing in Bangalore, dude, like I don't know why, but my mind always goes to okay, like what's the
Yeah.
But moving away from that, when it became about, okay, these cohorts are almost for people like going to college. The people that they meet, they end up working together. Like, right, there are design teams out there today where like 3 or 4 people and they've all been in the same cohort or different cohorts. And then for a lot of people, it's also that any new city that I go to, suddenly I have a group of friends there.
Yeah.
So not just through 10K designers, but I'm just glad there's so many like online experiences which are actually helping people make friends. Like I feel like with social media kind of started like that, where it was like, yeah, it's about meeting people, meeting your friends. And then it became entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now there are these new forms of, okay, it's still connecting with people and this is how you do it.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like social media is a crazy game. Like it has its pros and cons. You have to be very careful about how you use your phone. And the more I think about it, the more conscious I get. Because if you, I mean, just like stories, right? Like there was a point where I was watching so many stories that even when I was not on Instagram, my brain couldn't stick to one thought for more than 10 seconds. Like there were stories in my head because it was getting you. And you know, stories have no context. Reels are still based on the algorithm. So they are relevant to a specific topic, but stories are completely disconnected.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful because they're influencing how we think.
True. I love this quote around this, right? Which is, first we shape the tools, and then the tools shape us.
Yeah, for sure. That is so true. Yeah.
I feel that with stories, bro. I think it's just, even when you're uploading stories, right? This doesn't happen to me so often anymore, but there would be like, I'm like, who looked at my story?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my God, this story has this, and now I'm comparing it to this. Or even when I'm watching, right? Like I notice when I'm watching, I'm just like, tap, 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 tap.
Oh, yeah.
Then I'm like, why am I giving so much weight that this person watched my story? They just went through it. Big deal.
But I love stories because of the real estate that you get, right? Like if someone comes to my Instagram, you wouldn't see too much stuff on post, but I post a lot of stories. Like, you know it. Like I would post 50 stories in a day simply because of the real estate and the time span and the way it's been designed. Like it looks simple, but there is some sort of freedom in stories because you know it's going to go away. So you don't think too much about it. And because you're not thinking too much about it, it becomes authentic. And that is what keeps the audiences hooked because it's so authentic and so personal to you.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. From a product design perspective, I think it's no easy feat for a feature that started on one app, Snapchat,
Yeah.
to suddenly be in every single Facebook app. Like it means there's fucking magic there. Like there's some spark.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, very interesting, like from a product design perspective, when this was happening, I saw a lot of people were like, you know, oh, Instagram is copying stories, Facebook is copying stories. But if you really look at it, stories is no different from news feeds and like comment boxes, right? Like comment boxes, there was somebody who initially came up with a comment box.
Yeah.
And then it was so engaging that everybody was like, oh my God, I need a comment box on my site. Stories is just our version of that.
You're absolutely right. See, some things are so important and so pivotal that you can't expect them to be exclusive to one single app. Likes, right? Like likes, comments, shares, like all of these things. You can't say that because I thought of it, this is the only place that it would exist because it's so important.
And I mean, they tried making their own version of stories, right? They tried, let's change this, but just as an organism, it was so powerful that in natural selection, nothing could beat stories.
Oh, yeah. It is too well designed, too simple, and too functional.
Yeah.
And even Reels, right? Like the way Reels has changed the entire landscape, people don't post pictures anymore. On Instagram, I see a lot of pages actually making small GIFs out of JPEGs because it helps them reach more people. So it would be an image that would be a 2-second video simply because they want it to be accepted as a video.
Yeah. I think stuff like this, although it's not traditional product design, it's what excites me the most because it's like, it's easy to design the Reels UI or like, this is the filters or these are the specific features. But to really think from the perspective of, okay, it's just images. It's primitive images. Everybody has images. It's video, it's audio, but we're going to combine this in an interesting way that people can now suddenly at a tenth of the effort, thought, create nice stories. Like that is an insane challenge. Like I sometimes think about, we have stories today, but what if there is some undiscovered format just sitting there, which is a combination of these things and just hasn't been discovered yet?
Yeah, for sure, right? Like there's so many ways that you can take primitive elements and mix them together and have a new remix. And then
Yeah.
once you see that remix, you can never go back. And they're right there in front of our eyes. Like, I feel whatever that we have around us is built of the same atoms, same chemical compounds, right? And it's just us
Absolutely, yep.
mixing them together. Every invention that's going to come in the future is in front of us right now in another shape and form. It's all about like putting the right thoughts, putting the right materials together and giving it shape.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I'll add here, okay? How do you, since you're a big Notion fan, right? How do you think about your quality of inputs, like the kind of stuff that you read, the kind of stuff that you save, the kind of stuff that you revisit? Like, what's your general framework or thoughts around that?
Actually, I have reduced my consumption of reading. In fact, I am more moving towards a phase where I'm rereading everything that I know. I am actually going deeper into what I already know. And instead of following textbooks or case studies, I just start observing things around me. Right? Because a lot of us, we are watching videos that are based in a separate domain where they have separate rules and separate countries. And there is so much to learn just from the people that you meet, just in the office where you're hanging out. So in my Notion, I have some pages for just resources where I would go to hang out and like just explore. But most of my Notion is comprised of my own insights, what I think, what I have drawn from it. Because otherwise, if I'm just documenting what I'm learning, it's just like I'm copying and pasting. Nothing is going in my brain. And the thing is, when I write it on Notion, when you write something on Notion, you're actually telling your brain to forget it. So when you learn something and you write it on Notion, now your brain knows that it's easy to forget it. So now I've realized that I should first get an insight. It should become a part of me. I should digest it. Then I would write it on Notion, which acts as my journal so that I can just revise what I already know. And that has really helped me.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Notion too. I think for me things changed once I took the building a second brain cohort.
Oh,
heard of
you've
this?
taken that? Oh,
Yeah, and this was about 2 years back, 2.5 years back.
yeah.
But I was really skeptical. I was like, dude, like this dude is going to teach me how to use a note-taking app. But then once it was more than the note-taking app. It was about, okay, here's a method. Like it talked about para and all these frameworks. But for me, the simple thing that just stood out was your brain. It's almost like we are seeing all this information on a regular basis. Our so-called ecosystem of information kind of affects our beliefs and behaviors. So it's like, what do you expose yourself to? And how do you create that environment around you where you are reaffirming the things that you know?
Yeah.
And so like a second brain, like very memeable thing, right? People are like, oh bro, you have a second brain. Very funny. I would never tell somebody like, bro, I have a second brain.
Yeah.
But just being serious about note taking and just being like, dude, like I have to do this has just been crazy for me. Like I've got notes going all the way back to like a couple years ago now.
Yeah.
And it feels good. It feels good to have your thoughts not in here, but just reflected back at you. Like there's a lot of stuff you just forget.
You won't believe I have a page in my Notion which is titled "What to do when you're feeling low, what to do when you are bored." Because I forget what I should do when I'm in a state of mind, right? Because your brain forgets. And I've written memories of important days. I've added pictures. So every time I want to refresh that good memory, I would just go, and it's like an instant dose of a positive emotion because you remind yourself that how well things have been and how much you've come ahead. And I feel like journaling is such an important habit. Like it teaches you how to write. It teaches you how to put words to your thoughts. It allows you to structure your own thoughts. You get a lot of clarity. It is such an underrated habit.
And I think it's kind of like it's a bit of a opposition to algorithmic feeds, Google and stuff. Like one of the most common things that people ask around this is, why can't I just Google it, right? Why do I need to take the effort of storing all this stuff? Everything is Googleable. Or, maybe that's not a conscious thing they say.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, everything is Googleable. I can just go on Twitter and read good stuff. But it's almost like, dude, you can't Google what you felt like 2 years ago when you were doing that thing.
Yeah.
Right? That's you. Like, it's almost like you're kind of saying that instead of having these algorithmic feeds that can just literally feeding me stuff, let me make my own knowledge base. I have my own search engine on top of that, and then this is all my stuff. Like that is, number one, I don't think it was as easy to do, right? In terms of tools, we're like almost at the perfect time. Because just a couple of years ago, you're like, how do I store this? Phones weren't good. You have to like get to your desktop. But now with everything that's possible, I'm just like, dude, in 20 years, 30 years, keeping this up as a habit, you can create something actually insane, like worthy of the name second brain.
No, so imagine, see, your Notion is your own personal Google, right? As you said, it's your own index of resources and libraries. So if we build our Notion for the next 15 years, and if we give people access to that Google, that's your own mini search engine filled with resources and routes and guidances and memories. So there's a lot that Notion can do in the long run because they're getting data. Imagine the amount of resources and data that people are going to have, right? And what if two Notions come together and you have like a bigger world of resources? What if you and I combine our Notions together and we have like this big mega library of design resources?
Dude, I mean, there are second brain nerds out there that are at an even crazier level than we are. Like there are the folks that use Rome and Obsidian. Like they actually do this. Like they're just like, yeah, here's all my stuff as a graph. Here's your graph. Here's where it intersects, and boom.
Like a mind map.
Like this is like you're building a neural network with your own stuff. Like that's oh
man. I wouldn't want to go that deep into all of these things. I'll get too busy into this.
Because I know if I get obsessed with it, I'll kind of lose the point and I'll do it just for doing it.
Yeah. No, because
like, wow,
life is more than this, right? Like I see every time I get too much into the depths of like technicalities and design, I would just take a trip to like Chandni Chowk or Karol Bagh or all these markets in Delhi where they've spent zero money on marketing design, zero money on aesthetics, but they're running great businesses, right? And that is where your notions and your perceptions are broken. Then you realize that these guys were bootstrapped, right? Like they're not asking for all these tools and resources to get started, but look where they are.
Yeah, bro. I get that.
The world is filled with exceptions.
Yeah. And you know what? Like the whole Google thing, I think it's also that today, if you look at Google, it's not really that Google gives you the best results. It gives you the best SEO results, which is not the same as the best results, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
It's just not even comparable, I feel.
When I go on YouTube, I am actually subscribed to a lot of good channels that have around 400-500 subscribers. You would never find them on YouTube. I find them through very weird ways. They might come in the recommendations or someone in the comment section would have mentioned them.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When you rely on SEO, you don't get the best results because there are separate influencers that are sort of, affecting the result that you get.
Yeah. And I think, the reason some people, you can call it journaling habit, you can call it second brain, you can call it just more documenting and whatever. But the reason I suggest people actually do it is because this is your personal information map, right? Why would you use somebody else's map when you can design your own maps for what makes sense to you, your perception, things that caught your attention specifically, and that is just way more rewarding in the long term than Google algorithmic feeds, so to say.
I don't spend more than 40 minutes making the YouTube videos ka slides. Never spend more than 30-40 minutes. Why? Because every time I was learning something, I've documented the resource. I've documented the lessons. So if I know that I have a video due tomorrow, I would just sit for 30 minutes, go through my Notion, and I would be done with my content. And I remember there was this episode of Sherlock as well, right? Like it was a season finale of this guy who remembered everything. And they would show him that he goes in his brain and opens these cabinets. So this is like a minimal version of that. You have like this big repository that you can access anytime.
Yeah. I have the same approach, dude. I think of it as these are like small puzzle pieces or small Lego pieces, right? And in my, let's say, notebooks or Notion, and I use Notion and Apple Notes a lot, both of these. But there I've got these building blocks and, some of them are just pieces. Some of them are like individual things. But then when I need it, I just have to look at my little bucket of Legos and I'll be like, okay, this is what I have. Let's assemble and ready to go.
And look how well designed it is, right? Like, I don't think there's been a feature that is too new. Now they are introducing advanced features, but at a very primitive level, it's just note taking. But the way they have added those primitives together, right? Like, as we spoke about stories, it's literally pages and text of different formats. But the way they have pitched it, like, I love Cron as well. Have you used Cron?
No, this is a calendar app, right?
Yeah, it's a calendar app. Brilliant app. It is literally, you might, at the outset, you would say that it's just a calendar app. But they've remixed the primitives together to make something so sophisticated and so better that I just can't stop using it.
Yeah. I feel the same with Superhuman, dude. I use Superhuman for all my email stuff. And that's what excites me as a product designer that even today in 2022, there's still ways of reinventing something like email,
Yeah.
right? Superhuman. Calendars, Cron, Notes, Notion.
Notion.
There's another one, browsers, right? Browser company. I haven't used that yet.
Oh, the
But
browser company is doing
crazy.
amazing stuff. Amazing.
Yeah.
Game changer.
Yeah. All right, bro. Ansh, I think we can wrap this up. What's your, what are you working on these days? Your final message, so to say, to the people who are watching this?
I mean, I've just been working on Zara Studio. That's why I've stopped making edited videos on my YouTube just to prove people that, your live streams can also look really cool. So just been making Zara Studio, trying to put out more content on YouTube and, just hosting a few meetups to meet more people in person.
Awesome. What's your message? Very cliche question. I don't know why people do this. But what's your message? What's your message to all the designers out there?
I would just recommend them to, just take care of yourself first and prioritize your health, your mind, and your learning, and just let life happen to you. Don't plan too much. It doesn't work out in most cases. Have a direction, but don't because you'll just keep getting anxious about controlling everything.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Ansh.
Thank you, Abhinav. So glad to be here.
If you enjoyed that video, please, of course, let us know. Leave a like and comment. But besides that, this is what we do for a living. We help creatives and designers level up in their careers. If you'd like to join one of our live programs, we do them a few times a year. Check out the link in the description. It's 10kdesigners.com. And I'll see you around.